For years, there's been this shadow war between Iran and Israel, fought with spies and proxies. But in 2025, it exploded right out into the open. And what started as a fight between two countries didn't stay that way for long. It spiraled into a regional firestorm, and nowhere got hit harder by the shockwaves than Lebanon. All right, let's break down how it all happened.
At first glance, this might just look like some standard safety notice. But trust me, this was a global alarm bell. When the European Union's top aviation authority tells planes to stay away from the entire Middle East, you know things have gotten serious. This wasn't just a suggestion, it was a clear sign that the skies themselves had become a battlefield. The conflict had reached a whole new, terrifying scale.
So you have to ask, right? How did we get here? How did we go from a contained conflict to something that shut down global travel and pulled in so many other countries? That's the big question, and we're going to unravel how this fire spread, step by step. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the intense 12-day war itself. Then we'll follow the shockwaves as they hit the Gulf. After that, we'll focus on how Lebanon became a second front. And finally, we'll talk about what this new type of conflict really means for everyone. Okay, first things first. To really get how this crisis sucked in the whole region, we have to start at the epicenter. That direct, unprecedented fight between Iran and Israel that we now call the 12-day war. To really feel the intensity here, just look at this number, 1,084. That's how many drones Iran launched in just 12 days. We're not talking about a small, targeted strike. This was a massive, sustained aerial assault, day in and day out. And it wasn't just drones. On top of that, Iran also fired 574 ballistic missiles. You know, the really fast, powerful ones. This chart shows you just how relentless it was. You can see the spikes, day after day. It shows how Israel's defense systems were just getting hammered, nonstop. It was a real war of endurance. Now, what's really crucial to get is how Iran's game plan changed over time. See, they started out hitting military targets, but as the days went on, they shifted, first to critical infrastructure, like a major gas refinery, and then in the final phase, they started aiming at cities, at civilian areas. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate move to crank up the pressure and raise the human toll of the war. All right, so that was the main event, but the shockwaves spread fast. This conflict was never going to stay contained. Neighboring Arab nations, a lot of them just trying to stay out of it, got pulled in whether they liked it or not. I mean, this quote from the Gulf Cooperation Council says it all. It shows you just how high the stakes were. When they say an attack on one is an attack on all of them, that's not just talk. They were drawing a line in the sand, treating the strikes as an attack on the entire group. And the immediate impact? Pure chaos in the skies. Just look at this list. Country after country, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, all forced to shut down their airspace. This wasn't just a headache for travelers. This brought global business and supply chains grinding to a halt. It's a pretty stark picture of just how far the disruption spread. And some countries couldn't just be bystanders. Jordan, for instance, was literally in the flight path of all this stuff. So to protect its own people from whatever might fall out of the sky, the Jordanian military had to step in and start shooting down Iranian drones and missiles. It really shows you how impossible it was to just stay on the sidelines. And now we get to the most violent, most consequential shockwave of this whole war. We're going to look at how Lebanon, a country already dealing with so many of its own problems, got dragged in and became a devastating second front, pushing the nation right to the edge. So, why Lebanon? What was the trigger? Well, this quote right here makes the connection crystal clear. The fighting in Lebanon didn't just happen randomly. It was a direct response to the killing of a top commander in Hezbollah, which is, of course, Iran's most powerful ally in the region. Iran was always going to hit back, and it was always going to be through Lebanon. And man, things went south incredibly fast. Look at this timeline. In September, you have the first warnings about the airspace. By October, just a month later, Hezbollah is attacking Israel, and Israel responds with a ground operation. It all happened in a flash, and that ceasefire in November was shaky at best. Israel's retaliation was massive. We're not talking about some small strikes on the border. They launched airstrikes all across Lebanon, hitting Hezbollah infrastructure everywhere. They even struck the southern suburbs of Beirut, the capital. That's a huge escalation, taking the fight deep into the country. And the human cost, as always, was severe. 31 people were killed in these strikes, and another 149 were wounded.
And we have to remember, these aren't just statistics. These were civilians, caught in the middle of a conflict they didn't ask for. The humanitarian fallout was just immense. You had families in southern Lebanon and in Beirut literally fleeing for their lives, trying to find shelter anywhere they could. Schools were closed. Public services just fell apart. It was yet another wave of displacement for people who were already suffering so much. And this right here shows you the huge crack running right down the middle of Lebanon. On one side, you've got the official government desperately trying to stop a full-scale war. But on the other, you have Hezbollah, this incredibly powerful militia acting like its own country. They launched their own attacks following Iran's lead and dragged the entire nation into the war with them. So let's zoom back out and look at the big picture. This war wasn't just about the immediate destruction. It fundamentally rewrote the rules for the whole region. The old idea that some countries were safe havens, that conflicts could be contained, that idea seems to be gone. This really gets to the heart of the main takeaway. For so long, the perception of the Gulf was that it was a safe, stable island in a chaotic region, a hub for business and travel. But this war shattered that. The reality of closed airspace and missile threats delivered a massive psychological shock. It proved no country was immune, and it forced everyone to completely rethink what safety even means there. And that leaves us with this final really big question. In a world where a war can cross borders in the time it takes a missile to fly, can any place truly be a safe haven anymore? If this war taught us anything, it's that in today's Middle East, instability anywhere can very quickly become instability everywhere.